and welcome to the Medtech Women Podcast. So just a brief introduction, my name is Jess. I'm a Senior Staffing Associate at MDJ Partnered Solutions. So we're a life science staffing solutions business and we support medical device and biotechs globally. Having worked within the industry for 18 months now, I noticed a slight lack in the gender diversity within companies, and I'm very passionate about helping women either enter the life science industry or really progress their career within such a busy and interesting industry. So this has led me on to creating Medtech Women by MDJ, where I work with companies that female professionals, and now where I'm starting the Medtech Women podcast to discuss and share knowledge, advice, and inspire confidence onto females just starting their careers. So today I'm joined by Deborah O'Neil, the CEO of Novabiotics. So thank you so much for joining me today, Deborah. Could you just give me a brief introduction onto who you are and maybe what led you up to founding and being the CEO of Novabiotics?
Absolutely. So hi, Jess, and nice to meet you, and delighted that, you've under your own steam, I guess been inspired to come up with such an important series and mission, I guess, in terms of gender balance in this sector. So in terms of my own journey, I started out as an academic scientist, so a fairly straightforward academic career path, I guess, degree, PhD, postdoc, and then in around 2002 had the opportunity to, I guess, investigate the process of spinning out a business, and that business is now Novabiotics.
Yeah.
That came to fruition, let's say, in 2004. So as the founder, CEO, and I guess my other main hat is still the chief scientific officer. Yeah. I've been on that journey since 2004 to now, and have remained at the helm. So it's been an interesting transition for me, but one that felt very natural. So it was just an obvious next step in my career. That's what it felt like at the time. And Novabiotics has gone from strength to strength since then.
Oh, that's great. I'm glad to hear it. So what actually made you want to get into the industry?
The project that I was working on that was really around developing new antimicrobials, I knew couldn't be fully explored as a side project to my academic career. So I was actually in a very, lucky, secure position. I was a senior postdoc, a tenured position at a research institute, had my own core funding secure, and had also just landed a very large research council grant, ironically, but I still decided to make the move and spin the business out with quite a lot of support at the time, I have to say, because I realized that, you can always go back. It's not forever. You have to, sometimes just test something properly. And it was either going to be spin out, work on this 100%, or never. It couldn't just be a side project, a lifestyle thing. So that is really what led me to the decision. I come from, I guess, quite an entrepreneurial background. My own family have always been in business, always owned their own business. So even though I was the first member of the family to go to university, I come from that more commercial rather than academic background. So I think that probably has a lot to do with it as well.
Okay, great. And as you started your career, did you have any mentors or role models that you looked up to, and did they really help you?
Do you know, I didn't, and this is something that I feel has improved now. So the pool, let's say, of mentors that are out there, and I think people wanting to mentor, folks that they see at an earlier stage in their career coming through. Going back to 2002, so nearly 20 years, I would say that wasn't the case. My own mentors were actually my supervisors in my academic roles, so definitely much more scientific mentors. And then the first chairman of Novabiotics, for sure, was a great mentor, taught me lots and lots of things. I interestingly would say I never had a female mentor. But again, I think that's just how the industry's changed in the last 20 years. There are, so many more women leaders and women who have started their own businesses in this sector, and, are running those in senior leadership roles, even if not, as CEO, CSO. So, yeah, I think, as fantastic as my mentors were, and I don't necessarily think, by the way, they have to be female mentors for female mentees, because they were incredibly supportive, regardless of gender, and we had, great relationships. But yeah, I do think that's important.
Okay. And I know you touched on it a little bit, but you've been within the industry for 20 years now. Do you feel like you've seen quite a big shift in gender diversity, like in the balance?
I have, and certainly at the biotech level. Interestingly, in Aberdeen, where Novabiotics is based, we have a gender imbalance, you could say, towards female leadership, as CEOs in our biotech companies, which is fantastic. Whether they're therapeutic companies, diagnostics or devices, or kind of service providing companies. So that's fantastic. I think the pathway is clearer now. So even kind of female scientist founders don't assume, or anybody actually who's a scientific founder, regardless of gender, doesn't necessarily think that they will start the business but not necessarily stay in that business in a leadership role. Some people might not want to, some people might not necessarily discover that they have the skills to do that, but I think it's more a case of start off assuming that you possibly can and you want to. So you do find lots of folks, I think, who remain in leadership roles who were founders, and more and more of those are women. I think as an industry, certainly at the bench, life science still, I would say, is female dominated. It's just I guess it's an age-old question, and I'm not sure whether we'll ever answer it. A lot of it is down to choice, not just opportunity, but that kind of transition of that amazing female talent coming through into leadership roles. I think there is a lot more of that now. Obviously that's even happening. We have a couple of female CEOs of large pharma as well. Neither of those are actually kind of scientists or even medics, but again, I think that's changing the world over as well in any large company, and our sector is going to reflect that. But I think at the biotech end, which is still very much science driven and science led, it makes sense that there are going to be more female leaders because they've come through the ranks, so to speak. They're the folks that have developed the technology or have been part of that, have grown the company, shaped the company, and remain at the helm.
I agree with you there. And now being a female leader, do you feel like you've faced any additional obstacles, and if you have, how did you overcome them?
It's interesting. I would say none at all. So I haven't faced in my journey, which is great, any gender issues whatsoever. I would say earlier on it was more age, believe it or not, and perceived lack of experience. And I guess, again, in the olden days, probably seeing CEOs very separate from the people who actually understood what the business was about and the science, and not necessarily assuming a founder would stay as the CEO. So I would say age and perceived lack of experience more than gender. What I'm hearing now, which is interesting, talking to potential investors, is I'm at the moment the only female leader within the business in terms of a C-suite level, or the only female director, and we're hearing how surprising that is. which is nice, from potential investors. And it happens to be that, the skill sets and the board that we have, the board that we've needed, is just what it is. But it's nice that that's not expected, and that, I guess, gender and all sorts of other diversity is expected, anticipated, and people understand the value of that. And it's great that, to me, that's almost sounding like if you don't have that, you don't embrace it, you're the exception, not the norm. So that's fantastic. And I think back to, as you were saying, that's just been part of the transition over the last 20 years in our industry and beyond.
Okay, yeah, thank you so much. And so we've spoke about your obstacles, but what do you feel like your biggest achievement is in your career?
I actually think sticking with it for so long, and I guess that the perseverance and the tenacity, starting very small back in 2004, when I set the business up with what we had, and not just in terms of the team and the size of the team, because we're still a relatively small business, which isn't unusual, as you know, for biotech, but more the patents, the product portfolio that we've built, and building all of that along the journey, weathering various storms when it's come to fundraising, all the things that happen beyond your control, the recessions that we had, which seem like ages ago now. Anything before the pandemic, quite frankly, does. But I think getting through all of that, and sometimes just looking back and going, wow, this is Novabiotics now where it is. Incredibly proud, of the team's achievements as well. We've very much done it together, the technical team, the rest of the board and the directors. So it's fantastic that idea in 2002 that became a business in 2004 is what it is now. So I think it's the sum of lots of small achievements that have got us to where we are now. So incredibly pleased and proud of that.
Yeah, and I would like to say a massive congratulations, because I think it's a huge achievement to where Novabiotics is now. So a massive well done.
Oh, thanks, Jess.
No problem. So when you were starting out your career, or when you were starting out in Novabiotics in 2002, what do you feel like the best advice was that you received?
I think two bits, actually, and this is back to the mentor that I told you about. So the lovely John Poole, our first chairman, and he actually said, enjoy the journey, because, girl, you may never reach the destination. And I probably only understood that years later, because at the time I was like, what? But I completely get that now. And you learn and develop so much as you go along, and you don't really know that you are, just because you've got your head down, you're getting on with it, you're building your business, you're doing what you need to do, learning as you go, and it's all those things that you do pick up along the way. And even if your business is not successful, things have to change or whatever, take that and use it. It's all so important what you have learned along the way. And if you are successful, even better. That's fantastic. Because people always ask me, well, you started off as a scientist, you had no business background apart from your, I suppose, personal life earlier on, the environment I grew up in. How can you be a CEO running a company? But if you surround yourself, you have that ambition to do it, you will never be expected to know everything, to be able to do everything. There is no rule book for any business. Every journey, every business, every story is completely unique. You have to understand the basics, and you will very quickly, and you learn as you go, and you have to learn within your own business. There's no problem if you're surrounded by a safety net of expertise, advice, mentors, I think play a part in that, and even people who you can speak to informally, as well as your board, your directors, your advisors. So whether that's legal counsel, PATS, you will have that army, around you and behind you. And you will learn as you go within your own journey. And it's important that you founded that business, if you're in our sector, on an idea, your own idea. That always has to remain at the core, and that's really important. And you will learn and pick things up as you go. And I think that is, again, part of that enjoy the journey. The destination may also change as you go, but as long as it's still the right destination for the right reasons, that's absolutely fine. Be prepared to be flexible, and that again is all a part of doing the right thing and learning as you're on that journey.
And if you could go back to you starting out Novabiotics, what would one piece of advice you'd give yourself?
It's going to take 10 times longer and be 10 times harder, but about 1,000,000 times more rewarding. And definitely patience. And I am absolutely not a patient person. I think it's actually a medical problem. But you just have to get into that mindset, and you, I guess, have to build on the small wins, because back to that destination, it probably will take longer than you imagine, but it's not that you aren't going to get to interesting places that mean a lot, develop the company as you go as well. So be prepared for it taking 10 times longer, it being 10 times harder, sometimes costing 10 times more than you thought. But I think the reward at the end absolutely nets off all of that and more.
100%. So with you said there's been an increase in women in the industry, but what do you think can be done to maybe attract more women into it, and like maybe get more women to do science related degrees at uni? What do you think could be done?
Absolutely. I would say that it's interesting that starting with the second bit first, and science degrees. I was still saying life science and the biological sciences, there's a lot of women choosing to do those degrees. I guess the pandemic, this is an odd silver lining, but has put life science very much in the spotlight. It's relevant for all the right and wrong reasons. So I'm actually quite hopeful about folks, regardless of gender, wanting to pursue the diverse careers that you can have in our sector. And I guess it's letting folks know at a very early stage the career options that are actually available to them. And it's not necessarily go straight into industry, stay in research, do a PhD, follow an academic track. There's so many things, again, we touched on them before, becoming an IP attorney, going into regulatory affairs, all sorts of things, a wealth of opportunities. And I guess it would be even more exciting if people knew about that very quickly. So I think companies engaging, and we certainly do at Novabiotics, with our local universities and universities beyond, and actually girls when they're still at school, so really promoting STEM subjects, but in the context of because look at these amazing careers that you can have later on. So I think it's just making people aware of those career opportunities, and then this is back to that, I genuinely think that the opportunity is there, but obviously people have to know about it. And whether that's just coming into any career in life science, or even as a very senior academic scientist starting your own business, the opportunities certainly are there. and it is definitely down to choice. I think there is always the work-life balance element, because there are, lots of fantastic female scientists I know in very senior positions in research posts, who do not want to go more into a corporate leadership role. They're very happy with what they're doing. Where they are in our industry, it would be the only way, I guess, to advance. But they're genuinely happy doing research, and I also think that's fantastic, because we don't need, it is a pyramid still, and we don't need a world of CEOs, CSOs with no senior leaders that are part of the team around them to do what they do. So I think it's opportunity, options, and choice, and that combination. But I think the world that we're living in now, it's all there. We just need to make sure that the talent that's coming through knows that the opportunities are there. And I think business, if we want a pipeline of talent coming through, it's up to us to engage with younger scientists to let them know.
Yeah, perfect. And is there any last bits that you'd like to add? Any last bits or piece of advice that you'd like to give women maybe starting out their career? Any last comments?
I would just say it's a fantastic sector to be in. I think more now than ever. I think the flexibility is there. I think work-life balance absolutely can be achieved, and just the wealth of career options, some of which you may not even know exist, to really give you that the career that you want, that enables you to I guess live your passion, the thing about life science and the sector that made you probably want to go into this industry in the first place, or that you're considering. And once you're in the under the big life science umbrella, let's say, there's also the flexibility to move about. It's not that once you're, I mentioned this before, even my own journey, I've never seen it as a fixed path. There's so many options, even once you're in there, that might suit where you are at different stages in your life as well. So yes, I can only encourage women at any stage in their career in this industry to certainly go for it, and if you possibly can, stick with it.
Yeah, I second that. But Deborah, thank you so much for talking to me today. It's been an absolute pleasure getting your insight into the industry, and I've really enjoyed our conversation.
Lovely to meet you, Jess. And as I said, fantastic endeavour. So delighted to be a part of it, and looking forward to hearing more of these as well.